Now, the organization which I believe was instrumental in creating these false flag attacks, more recent false flag attacks, was the Project for the New American Century. This was an American think tank consisting of neocons, people like Dick Cheney, Rumsfeld, Wolfowitz, and they were formed in 1997, and they wrote a document in 2000, about a year before 9/11, where they basically spelled out what they were going to do. It was entitled Rebuilding America's Defenses. Now that's really incorrectly named, because it was all about how they were going to wage war against the world. In that document it spells out that because the Russian threat of communism is now gone, they were then going to create more wars on multiple fronts and use this opportunity that communism went in order to create a world power. And one chilling extract from this document states, "The process of transformation," this is America's military taking over the world, "even if it brings revolutionary change, is likely to be a long one, absent of some catastrophic and catalyzing event like a new Pearl Harbor." They were spelling out what they were going to do in 9/11 a year beforehand. Now, Aaron Russo is well, he's dead now, but he made a film called From Freedom to Fascism. I recommend everybody watch it. It basically describes what I'm talking about. He met with one of these very high member of the cabal, if you call it. It's the people who sit behind a veil, members of Council on Foreign Relations, who basically steer the American government. And before 9/11 occurred, he was told by Aaron Russo about 9/11 that it was going to happen. And he spoke about this in a telephone call. This is from the Zeitgeist movie. But remember, what he's talking about took place before 9/11.
This is Aaron Russo, a filmmaker and former politician. To his left is Nicholas Rockefeller of the infamous Rockefeller banking and business dynasty. After maintaining a close friendship with Nicholas Rockefeller, Aaron eventually ended the relationship, appalled by what he had learned about the Rockefellers and their ambitions.
I got a call one day from an attorney woman I knew, and she said, "Would you like to meet one of the Rockefellers?" I said, "Sure, I'd love to." And we became friends, and he began to divulge a lot of things to me. So he said to me one night, he said that there's going to be an event there, and out of that event, you're going to see, we're going to go into Afghanistan, so we can run pipelines from the Caspian Sea. We're going to go into Iraq to take the oil and establish a base in the Middle East, and we're going to go into Venezuela and try and get rid of Chavez. And the first two they've accomplished. Chavez they didn't accomplish. And he said you're going to see guys going into caves looking for looking for people that they're never going to find. You know, he was laughing about the fact that you have this war on terror. There's no real enemy. He's talking about how by having this war on terror, you can never win it because it's an eternal war. And so you can always keep taking people's liberties away. And I said, how are you going to convince people that this war is real? He said, but the media can convince everybody it's real. I mean, you know, it's just that you keep talking about things. You keep saying it over and over and over again, and eventually people believe it. You know, you created the Federal Reserve in 1913 through lies. You create 9/11, which is another lie. Through 9/11, then you're fighting a war on terror, and now all of a sudden you go into Iraq, which was another lie, and now they're going to do Iran. You know, and it's all one thing leading to another, leading to another, leading to another. Now, I would say to them, what are you doing this for? What's the point of this thing? You have all the money in the world you ever want. You have all the power. I said, you know, you're hurting people. It's not a good thing. And he would say, what do you care about the people for? Take care of yourself and you take care of your family. And then I said to him, what are the ultimate goals here? He said, the ultimate goal is to get everybody in this world chipped with the RFID chip and have all money be on those chips and everything on those chips. And if anybody wants to protest what we do or violate what we want, we just turn off their chip.
Okay, that was Aaron Russo, who I think died in 2007 of cancer. Let's just put yourself in the shoes of someone who's going to carry out one of these false flag attacks. So you're going to target a specific group of people, the Twin Towers, for example, or the London Tube, and you're going to murder them. You're going to be quite worried that people aren't going to believe your story if you're fabricating something. So one thing that they do, and any psychologist will tell you that this works, is called predictive programming, where they put things in people's minds so that they're more likely to accept that event when it happens, if they've already had that information go through their head some months earlier. And there was a TV program which was aired about 4 months before 9/11 called, I think it was called The Lone Gunman. It was a spin-off from the X-Files. And I've just clipped together some extracts from this TV show that was shown in America 9 months before 9/11.
These look like counterterrorism scenarios, war games developed for the Defense Department.
What's scenario 12D?
Airline terrorism?
Why is that important enough to kill for?
Because it's no longer a game.
If some terrorist group wants to act out this scenario, why target you for assassination?
Depends on who your terrorists are.
The men who conceived of it in the first place. You're saying our government plans to commit a terrorist act against a domestic airline?
There you go. Indicting the entire government as usual. It's a faction. A small faction.
For what possible gain?
The Cold War's over, John. But with no clear enemy to stockpile against, the arms market's flat. But bring down a fully loaded 727 into the middle of New York City, and you'll find a dozen tin pot dictators all over the world just clamoring to take responsibility and begging to be smart bombed.
I can't believe it. This is about increasing arms sales. Why didn't you tell the world this? Go to the press.
You think I'd still be drawing breath 30 minutes after I made that call? The press? Don't be so damn naive. I don't have all the specifics on scenario 12D, but I think I know the flight they've chosen.
You said they intend to bring this down in the middle of New York City? What if there is no bomb?
Well, how are they going to bring it down?
Same way a dead man can drive a car.
Remote access. Somebody on the ground's flying your plane.
I've just stopped the action there. I've compared this trajectory of the plane hitting the South Tower with the actual plane which hit the South Tower. Look how similar that is. This is what actually happened on the left. This is 4 months before 9/11.
Liars. Your flight's gonna make an unscheduled stop in exactly 22 minutes.
Corner of Liberty and Washington. Lower Manhattan.
World Trade Center. I'm going to crash the plane into the World Trade Center.
Kiss your asses goodbye.
Finally, we're getting close. Testify. You're going to let them cover this up.
They almost killed me twice. They won't fail a third time. My silence will keep me alive.
Of course, there's no concrete proof that that was predictive programming, but it's a damn coincidence if it's happened. And of course, they did the same with 7/7 London bombings. About a year before the 7/7 London bombings, there was a panorama program which envisioned 3 tube stations being blown up by 3 Al-Qaeda suicide bombers. Okay, now let's just talk about briefly Osama bin Laden. I mentioned him in the introduction there. Evidence linking bin Laden to the 9/11 attacks. Now, that slide's actually totally accurate the way it is, because there is no evidence linking bin Laden to 9/11. The evidence that they actually purport links bin Laden to 9/11 is a video which was found in a house on a VHS tape in Jalalabad. Now, I've got a document here which anyone can come and have a look at. Bin Laden made 3 videos in October, November, December of 2001, which it was bin Laden. And in those videos, he spoke about the Palestinian plight and about the oppression of Muslims, the Israeli situation. He did not mention 9/11 in the 3 other videos. And if you compare them, the guy in the one that he claims to be a confession, it's not bin Laden. It's proven to be not bin Laden. It's a completely different man. I mean, yeah, he's got a long beard, but the similarity ends there. And this is the only piece of evidence linking bin Laden to 9/11. He never knew any of the alleged bombers. He never communicated with any of the alleged bombers. And this is something which the mainstream media just completely bypasses, that there is no evidence linking bin Laden to 9/11. And I'll just, obviously, I've got an hour for this talk. I can't go into 9/11 is a massive subject, but I'm just going to list some of what I would call the smoking guns of 9/11 evidence. The first is the collapse of the towers themselves. There are competing theories in the truth movement as to how the towers, let's just say, went away. They were standing 1 minute and then they weren't the next. There are competing theories. But I think everyone in the truth movement agrees that a passenger airliner, which is like a very, very light aluminium tube, cannot cause those towers to collapse in the way that they did. We've heard reports that 11 of the alleged suicide bombers were still alive, and one of them, the lead hijacker, Mohammed Atta, his father reported that he telephoned him the day after 9/11, telling him that his life was at risk. We have the Pakistani intelligence who wired $100,000 to the lead hijacker, Mohammed Atta, and the 9/11 Commission, which was hand-picked by George Bush to investigate 9/11, said that they weren't interested in the funding sources behind 9/11. Now that's just crazy. Why wouldn't you investigate the funding? And I would suggest that Pakistani intelligence have links with the CIA, so that money is probably being funneled through intelligence agencies. And the hole in the Pentagon can't possibly have been made by a passenger airliner. And we've got the Building 7 collapse. Building 7 was a 47-story building near the Twin Towers, which collapsed sometime later, hadn't been struck by anything, and it collapsed at free fall speed, which looked like a controlled demolition. But it would be impossible for a building to fall without being hit or something being pre-planned. Now, interesting, the BBC actually reported that this building had collapsed 25 minutes before it had collapsed. So they were given the script before the building had collapsed. And again, this is something that the mainstream media, they've tried to explain it away. And the explanations that they come up with are preposterous. And I'm going to show the clip of the BBC actually reporting that this building had collapsed 25 minutes before it actually collapsed.
Now, more on the latest building collapse in New York. You might have heard a few moments ago I was talking about the Salomon Brothers building collapsing. And indeed it has. Apparently that's only a few hundred yards away from where the World Trade Center towers were. And it seems that this was not a result of a new attack. It was because the building had been weakened during this morning's attacks. We'll probably find out more now about that from our correspondent, Jane Stanley. Jane, what more can you tell us about the Salomon Brothers building and its collapse?
Well, only really what you already know. As you can see behind me, the Trade Center appears to be still burning. We see these huge clouds of smoke and ash.
News is continuing to come in, as you can imagine. We're now being told that yet another enormous building in New York has collapsed. It is the 47-story Salomon Brothers building.
Now, I think it was only in 2007 when somebody actually picked up on that footage that the BBC had reported this, and the BBC were asked if they could replay that clip, and they actually said that they'd lost the footage. Can you believe that? the most important day in history this century, and one of the world's largest media organization lost the footage. And then when they were challenged, they then said, oh no, we put it on the wrong shelf and we couldn't find it. And again, this kind of thing is not highlighted in our mainstream media. Now, let's just discuss what the motives for the invasion of Afghanistan and Iraq have been, because I don't believe it was to defeat Al-Qaeda, because Al-Qaeda doesn't actually exist. Now, Nicholas Rockefeller mentioned in the clip that I showed with Aaron Russo that it was to establish bases in the Middle East. And this links in with the map that I showed you earlier about America's goal for world domination, because they have bases obviously in Europe, in South America, and in parts of Asia. And the Middle East was probably the next step that they wanted to expand their empire into. And of course, it's got resources of oil and gas around the Caspian Sea. Possibly also to control the drugs trade in Afghanistan. Many people believe that the CIA control the majority of the world's heroin trade. And there are heroin traffickers who have been recruited by the CIA. This testimony is known about, where you'll get a heroin trafficker who will be arrested by the CIA, and then the CIA will say, well, look, you can either go to prison for 20 years or you can come work for us. And then they obviously obtain their black budget from the heroin trade. The heroin production in Afghanistan has gone up since 9/11, not gone down. Now, with their technology, their satellite technology, how easy would it be for them to identify every poppy field producing heroin in Afghanistan and just eradicate it? But poppy production's gone up. Another interesting theory is that if we consider ancient Samaria and theories of people like Zachariah Sitchin, they claim that there is ancient technology in Iraq, buried in archaeological sites, which possibly contain either instructions or advanced ancient technology. Now, the Baghdad Museum is a place where that kind of stuff would exist, and it's been theorized by people that this is one of the reasons for the invasion, because what happened when they got to Baghdad, that museum was looted, and you would have expected that would be one of the first places that the troops would have defended. So possibly it wasn't looted. Possibly the archives there and the relics were possibly stolen, but certainly not to defeat Al-Qaeda.